It reads your genomic data, and therefore it gives you results of how susceptible you are, for instance, to get prostate cancer or psoriasis or Parkinson. Owning your health is not only understanding it through reading the health reports and understanding your polygenic scores, but also owning the data, where 124 million user records were hacked in the year 2023 just for healthcare data, including genomic data. If we look at 2024, we're already 30% up from 2023.
I want to start out with just a very high-level question around, like, what are the big problems with the genetic testing industry and how it works today from like a consumer, everyday person standpoint?
Yeah, so the main problem that we see is that they completely overlook the privacy as well as the safety of the individual data donor. So the direct to consumer Web 2 genetic testing industry is all about aggregating genomic data at scale so it can advance research. And very often they also kind of their promotional language is very feel good, referring to the health of a nation, the age of scientific wellness, the fact that we're all human beings, and isn't it great that we share our data at scale to find out new things about ourselves. And it's not that we disagree with that assumption, but we just see that it isn't that simple if you completely want to take into account the individual patients or data donors who are providing the information to make this work, because these are all individuals and human beings whose privacy and also whose safety and security we need to respect.
For sure. And then how would you explain what GenomesDAO is doing to solve some of those problems around privacy and maybe monetization or data ownership? How would you explain what GenomesDAO is doing to the average person to help combat those things?
Yeah, so our entire mission starts with the safety and security of the data donor, whereas the direct to consumer genetic testing industry, they don't start with that. They haven't even kind of worked that in many of their propositions, because they really base themselves on the archaic way of working, whereby if I take some a sample, a biosample from you, whether this is saliva or blood or hair, at the moment that I take it from you, it is mine, right? Whereas, and that's, we feel that that's an archaic way of thinking about it, because even though I give that to you, it still comes from me, so I should still be the owner. And a lot in healthcare works on that assumption again. At the moment that you part ways with, again, a urine sample, saliva, blood, a hair sample, whatever is biologically from you, the moment you part ways with that, it belongs to the lab that you give it to, right? So what we actually say is, no, that's wrong. That should be kept together. The patient and the data set is one and the same thing. So our infrastructure basically guarantees that level of ownership throughout the entire process, throughout the entire research process. And that's where we are disruptive in healthcare and in genomics.
Okay, so you have legal guarantees of continued, health and health data ownership, which makes sense and is a differentiator. How do you guys differentiate on security of that data information versus like 23andMe or some of these Web 2 companies that have gotten hacked many times?
Yeah, so again, because it is the kind of the first core ingredient in our philosophy and in our product, we think security every step of the way. So we work with blockchain technology to ensure that there's one version of the truth whenever your data is queried. We're partnered with AMD, so the world's biggest chip maker, and we use their encryption technology, kind of tools called secure encryption virtualization technology, SEVES, that's the abbreviation for that, to ensure end-to-end encryption of the data. And then we work with proprietary storage facilities to make sure that it's stored somewhere safely. And so wherever we can bring in security, in that is befitting for the consumer, the individual, we would do it. And we're very happy that Web3 technology today really kind of has a lot of these functionalities that we can bring into the mix. And again, compared to 23andMe, they're not using any of those. So, I mean, the best they could do when the hack was announced of 23andMe in November 2023 was two-factor authentication, which is essentially, that sounds like ages ago for many people in Web3, but that was the best they could do. So they haven't. From the outside, it looks like they haven't thought of it at all. Now, I think the scary bit is that 23andMe is just an example. There are many, many, many other players like 23andMe who are doing exactly the same. Because they don't really have a grasp yet on how genomic data should be treated in the year 2024, right? 2023 is the biggest year on record of cyber hacking. We have never had as many cyber hacks as we had in 2023 across the board. 124 million people in healthcare alone were victimized. So cyber hacks where 124 million user records were hacked in the year 2023 just for healthcare data, including genomic data. If we look at 2024, even though the year is not over yet, we're already 30% up from 2023. So it's very likely that 2024 is going to dethrone 2023 as the year of unwanted cyber hacks, and who knows what's in 2025, right? So many of these direct-to-consumer genetic testing companies need to wake up to the realities of cyber hacking, and make sure that their security settings are accordingly.
That makes sense. Yeah, so it's basically like the current Web2 genetic testing industry has a lot of issues around hacks, also around data ownership, and kind of a lack of user monetization. Like obviously 23andMe makes money, but the people contributing their data don't. And then GenomesDAO is doing a lot of different things to solve those problems. One is around security, so using blockchain technology for kind of verifiability and ensuring that there's only one copy of your kind of genetic code out there. It's not duplicated or used in the wrong way in studies. And then also using secure environments, with AMD and chips, and then also, just more secure physical storage facilities. I think that all makes sense.
And sorry, maybe that's kind of so that's all kind of on the back end of things, but for the, and I appreciate you also talk about the monetization, but also the consent. So we've developed a unique repeat consent protocol, which essentially works like a notification that you receive on your phone that says, hey, we've got GlaxoSmithKline who would like to use your vault for specific scientific research. The reward for this would be $60. Are you interested to do this? Click yes. If so, no, if you don't want to participate. This is a continuous kind of consent that goes directly to the individual so that the individual can be involved, but also, every active vault on our infrastructure could be involved if possible. And I think that's the beauty of decentralized infrastructures and decentralized technology, that you can get as granular as you would like, but also as big as you would like, involving, everyone and according to the same rules of the game, essentially. And I think that's really the beauty of Web3 technology. And then the other bit is the monetization. Thank you for bringing that up. The monetization for us is important, not just because we want to reward each and every individual vault holder, but also to kind of flag to people that their genomic data has a value, right? And to give you an example, Blackstone, a big private equity company, took over Ancestry.com for 4.7 billion, right? So, the database of Ancestry at the time was 25 million users. So the floor price of each genomic data set is $188 to begin with, right? So we benchmark all of those things to flag to the individual, like, listen, know what you're giving away. If you're too easy with your data, there is monetary value there. And the monetary value is needed to stress to the people, like, listen, you wouldn't just give your phone number or your credit card number or kind of anything that has that value. You wouldn't be so easy with it. So why are you so easy with your DNA information? Be aware, be cautious.
Right. So that was a great example of how an individual person can earn money from the genetic data, right? You get a request in an app that says, would you share your data for this amount of money? You can say yes or no. How do I get to that point? Like, how do I get involved as an average person to where I receive potential monetization opportunities from my genetic data in an app?
Sure, there are two ways at the moment. So one is you can go to our website and order a kit, and we would then send the kit to your home. You would basically give us a saliva sample, which is then sent to one of our partner laboratories. And from there on, once it's sequenced there, it will end up in a vault to which you and only you would have the keys, right? So, and it works with a 12-word seed phrase, much like your MetaMask account. You basically use that to make sure that your genomic data is safely vaulted on our infrastructure. Once it's on there, we then work with a growing number of partners, research partners, commercial or otherwise, and the commercial end of the research is our pharmaceutical companies, who are interested in your data, who could be interested in your data. So that's so basically the entire querying process of us sending you these notifications starts once your data is in a vault. Another way, and we're very proud that we've recently launched that. So just over 2 months ago, we started and we introduced the Billion Genomes project, which is essentially helping those individuals who were victimized by the negligence of players like 23andMe. And what that means is that we are able to vault the data of basically people who previously had their data on 23andMe, Ancestry.com, on MyHeritage. So if you can basically request your data set from these platforms, and then you can retrospectively vault it on our infrastructure at no cost. And if once it's on there, the same rules of the game apply. Now, naturally, the second one would be at no cost to you, because for the first one, you would essentially buy the kit. Whereas if you already have your data, your genomic data, if it already has been sequenced, you could vault it then on Genomes.io, and you can start earning money from there.
Cool. So I can get involved by either ordering a kit, kind of through you guys uploading my data there, or I can, if I've already paid for a kit from like a Web2 company, I can download my data, upload it to Genomes, and then how are you paying people out? I guess besides, you said example was $60 from GSK. If there's like a study that needs to be done, are you in a points program right now? Are you paying out tokens? How are you rewarding people for getting involved?
Yeah, good question. So currently we have a point system active, whereby we're trying to kind of get people to invest in themselves and in trying to understand the value of their DNA. And there's the monetary aspect, but it's also like explaining and informing the individual as to what you can read in your DNA. And therefore, we have now 40 plus health reports active of strings of code that we send to your vault, and it reads your genomic data, and therefore it gives you results. It gives you something called a polygenic score of how susceptible you are, for instance, to get prostate cancer or psoriasis or Parkinson. It also looks at conditions, male baldness, left-handed or right-handed. So there's an entire scala of things that is already active as health reports on the infrastructure. So the individual starts understanding what you can read from the genomic data, in essence. So once you start as a vault holder, that is all kind of active information, and that is in essence already kind of a product in and of itself. And the nice thing about that is, and this is what we've kind of adopted under, we basically say own your health, right? It's very important that you understand yourself genomically, because if your polygenic score is at the 99th percentile, which essentially means that like you cannot escape the fact that you will have this condition or disease genomically, it means that you can now make the right decisions with regards to your health phenotypically, meaning, right, what is expressed genomically doesn't mean by default that you are going to have that disease, but you can nip it in the bud, as they say, by you making the right health decisions. For instance, if you are susceptible for type 2 diabetes, if you know um, you're very likely to get diabetes, type 2 diabetes, you might want to make the right dietary decisions now, right? So there are loads of those things that you can already kind of read through your genomic data, and that's how we seek to activate our audience, for them not only to be keen on the monetary reward, but also to be keen on owning their health. And when we say owning your health, is not only understanding it through reading the health reports and understanding your polygenic scores, but also owning the data, which is, of course, the most important bit, and also that bit that sets us apart from these direct-to-consumer Web 2 companies.
Yeah, people say crypto has no value or creates no value, but this is a pretty clear case of very important kind of utility outside of just owning your data and making money off of your data. It could be like a life and death type of decision or data point that you are presented with once you get your genetic data kind of tested and uploaded here.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Connor, just to close the circle, because your question was, how does the point system work? So for every time you run a report on yourself, you can earn points. So the more you invest in yourself, the more you invest time in understanding yourself health-wise, the more points you get, and the more points you get, the more genome you will receive, right? So we want that to be and kind of a a carrot, an additional carrot, an additional incentive. Like, okay, if you're not too motivated at the moment to do it for yourself, to own your health, then you might be persuaded, and maybe a bit more, by some points and some crypto, as we would like to say. But we would like to kind of do it for a good cause, so to say, because at the end of the day, it's about owning your health and understanding yourself better genomically.
For sure. And can you tell us anything about the timing for the token launch and also what blockchain it'll be on?
So we already have a Genome, which is our token, active on Base. So
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. So, and that's already been for a while. So you can find out more on in our Telegram, or on X. We launched. We did our ICO back in 21. So we've been active with a token for quite a while now. Having said that, for us, the token is really an extension of the utility, right? We want to make sure that the token is used appropriately for really kind of symbolizing that sense of ownership of your genomic data. And whenever you try to understand your genomic data better, or yourself better, you are then rewarded with our utility token Genome.
Right. And what have you liked about the experience of kind of building on Base and in the Base ecosystem so far?
Yeah, it's been great. I think it's what we see in the ecosystem, that the ecosystem is ever growing, and that goes across the board. I think in Web3 there are great new ideas, great new products that come together that at first we wouldn't think that there would be a fit, but then because it is on base, there could be a fit, which is very much what I like. So you're all of a sudden in the same kind of universe, and that creates a nice synergies, which I like very much so. So the experience thus far has been very good. And for us, it's kind of like we're going with a specific vision, and I think base fits best with that vision, right? So it's kind of like, okay, we want to grow, and then you start talking to, okay, what's out there, what fits best with what we want to do, and I think base on what it is, but also on the level of its ambitions, I think was most fitting what we're trying to realize.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great to hear. In terms of the demand side, we talked about individual people getting compensated through you guys for sharing the genetic data. How do you all even secure those deals, right? What do those deals look like? Can you give us any sense of the dollar amount of demand you've seen and what the typical customer profiles are, or what the typical use cases are on the demand side?
So yeah, the demand side for us is like, I think I think we've addressed that already. Is kind of all those people. So in the case of 23andMe, it's 14 million people. Ancestry.com, 25 million people. So there are already millions of people who have sequenced their genome and who are unhappy with the safety and security of that. We're very happy that we're now scaling up quickly to grow as a database, so we also become a very good resource for the research industry to kind of work with us. So and once they work with us, they can apply it for instance, the development of precision medicine, right? If we're really talking at how it applies to pharma. And we want to grow there. And it's not only growing with the individuals, but there are also a growing number of organizations who deal with genomic data at scale, who want to use us as an infrastructure, as a security layer in essence. So they do the research, and we just provide that extra level of security, so they can flourish in their research. And they want to work with us because they also need to persuade their patients and constituents that their data is safe with them, right? So in essence, we become a white labeled infrastructure for such organizations. So this morning I was talking to an organization in Korea. They have tens of thousands of users, and they would very much like to partner with us because in Korea they're very much focused on the safety and security of genomic data. So they're projected to be 1.5 million users by Q3 next year. So that really leads us to substantial growth, currently in the thousands, hopefully in the millions by next year. And that's just to give you an idea of kind of the size of our database, but also the potential, that we're not being over ambitious. If we say we want to grow into the millions, the possibility is definitely there. On the other hand, you need to look at, and then that's more talking about people who want to use the infrastructure for research purposes. So again, pharma wants to broker the data, wants to read the data for their research. They are starting to come to us, and then you can kind of the definition of value goes hand in hand with also the rarity of the data. So if you are, if for instance we're working with people who have very early onset Alzheimer's, that is of course more rare than healthy people who have nothing, kind of no specific mutations in there. The more rare the data is, the higher the price for using the data, so to say. So it's hard to say. Kind of, there's no benchmark other than the $188 for Ancestry.com, but that's floor value because these are all kind of data sets of generally healthy people, not necessarily people with rare diseases. So it is also our kind of intention to work with organizations who would need our infrastructure for their research, so they could also bring it closer to pharma, and that will of course also be beneficial to our business model, so to say, because we are effectively an infrastructure that then takes care of the querying process, but also of the payment process once they use the vaults, right? So, and of every transaction, we get a small percentage.
For sure. Well, yeah, this has been a great kind of overview of what you all are building. Where would you like to point our listeners to on the internet in terms of getting involved or learning more?
Well, be welcome at Genomes.io. That's of course our website. We're also on X, so you can find us at GenomesDAO or on Telegram. Those are the places that we're most active. So I think those are good places to start. And if you want to know more, then also feel free to send us an email at info@genomes.io. I think those are the best places.
Awesome. Well, Aldo, thank you very much for coming on. This was a great episode.
Thank you very much, Connor. Thank you so much for having me.